All right. There's kind of a pearl of wisdom once you've realized this, which is essentially how the person functions, and you also know two things, right? It's probably nothing to do with the company. That's good or bad. Either way, it's remember bad news is good if it's fast, right? Bad news is good if it's fast. You would rather have bad news come out today that there's something not quite right about the team rather than 3 months. Because in 3 months' time, remember, people, whatever they're doing that's bad, it's going to get more entrenched. So it's hard to fix. And then other people have experienced it for 3 months as well. So a victory here is not detecting bad news. It's detecting bad news really early and then being able to like take action to fix it. But in this case, we see that it's probably nothing related to the team. The team is fine. It's related to the individual. Okay, so in this particular case, in this individual, now you have discovered an insight that will help you test future individuals, right, for selection, so that these kind of cases become more rare. So you can kind of understand, all right, um, you can start classifying these things. We used to have a system, we called it the zoo, right? So whenever we found that there was this was more related to guests. When there was a certain type of guest that behaved a certain way, we would give them a zoo animal. And we would call, okay, a guest that's really aggressive and uses like threats to get it their way. Well, this is a gorilla. So you have a gorilla on your case, right? Um, Maybe a guest that jumps out of the place before paying for things, we call that a frog, right? Because it jumps in. So what you can start doing is you can start looking for personas that work well in the company and personas that don't work well. So you can kind of remember, oh, okay, here's a case of somebody. What was their fundamental issue? Maybe it's planning, yeah, or indecisiveness, or trying to please too many people. Then think, is there a way to screen for that? Is there a way to detect that? And even if there was, given the same context that you had at the very beginning, which was an urgency to hire an HAR intern, would you have still hired or would not? So that's how you develop a career in HR, right? You kind of start noticing patterns. These patterns then get placed back into the context of the original decision making. And at least even if you have to make the same decision, if you say, yeah, I would still need to hire that person because I had deadlines and quotas to fill, right? But at least you know why. And you know also there is an expiration date that might arrive sooner than another person, right? And you can warn the chapter lead, hey, look, I brought somebody in, but my best guess is that this person isn't 100% yet, but I think they can do a good job. They'll probably be able to be helped out in the first 2 or 3 months. Probably don't overexpend, let's say, certain resources to develop, but you can go your way. So that's how HR, I think, can be helpful by helping the leads and the other people prioritize where does this person receive in terms of guidance or help or whatever, and expectations, right? So there's fewer surprises. So that is, in a sense, the key of doing a really good exit interview, really finding like the core reasons and such. Um, okay. These are great questions. I think these are really good jumping off points. But you're also the skill here is related in your follow up questions. Do you have the right follow up like after they've said that? Do you drill deeper to get to the underlying truth? I think most of the time, what I've seen in your performance, where you're strong in that. You can identify character. You can see how people actually are in their real condition. So treat it as like kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like an interview but reverse, right? An interview is generally like the candidate has not built up any credibility and they need to earn your trust, right? This is a little bit the opposite, right? This is a little bit like where you need to earn their trust and get them to kind of like tell you what's really happening. But okay, hopefully, does that help clarify and give you a bit more structure and context of how to further develop this ETS?
Yes, but like actually, like my problem is that I might be good at like seeing characters, but I'm not good at follow up questions, sir. So like, how do you come up with follow up?
Well, you need to have a logical framework first of all in your mind, right? Like you need to understand like here's a good one. I'll give you kind of a tangential example. Yesterday, I was sitting with Manasa and Alvina. They're both working for creating an investment portfolio for Bukit Vista. So, hey, I need my friend back. Hey, hot. Yeah. Okay. So, I'm sitting with both of these interns, and they're telling me why we should invest in certain stocks, right? And I'm listening to this, and I realize most of what they're saying is reacting to sort of emotional caricatures that's happening in their mind. Okay, so how does that happen? So let's say they look at a company and they see that this company is partnering with another big company. So then they go, okay, because they're partnering with another big company, they're probably going to be a major player, and that's going to affect their stock price positively. But what's the logical framework there, right? It's not fundamental enough. It's not exhaustive enough. So what I generally do is I try to go, okay, let me start being skeptical, right? Does every partnership with a bigger force make you successful? So let's just start with family. If your parents are successful, does that make you successful? If your brother is successful, does that make you successful? So obviously no, right? So that is not a substantial line of reasoning to believe that just by association you're going to get stronger. Vera, I think you freezed up on my side. Are you still there?
Yep.
Okay.
Hello?
All right. Yeah.
Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the follow up question I think is meant to do this. It's meant to determine logical fallacy. Okay. So if you think about something, does that actually mean what? Like there's a lot of logical fallacies. I'll give you an example. Somebody will talk about, okay, um, you know, I have 15 years of experience working in hotels. You should hire me to do this because I'm really experienced. Well, okay. What if you just had 15 years of experience of sitting in your chair and you didn't do too much, right? Is that the same
Mm,
as somebody who had 1 year of experience, but they did everything, right? And they worked like 100-hour weeks and they learned everything about the business? Is really, really the same way? Of course, and if you think about it, of course not, right? There's obviously a difference in that interpretation. So, um, I guess the first thing is to have that logical framework. You need to understand what equals what, right? Um, and once you have that, then I think you can ask more pointed questions. So let's say somebody starts talking about let's say they come in, they start talking about, I don't know, that they're a great marketing person, right? And they say that,
mm,
yeah, I'm so great. I did this and I was working on this project. I was working on that project. I was working here, there. Well, I mean, that might fool somebody who's brand new or interviewing. But I would ask, okay, you worked on this project. What was your involvement, right? What decisions did you make that moved the project forward? Who did you coordinate with? Who did you report to? Who did they report to? Right? Um, the overall budget that was allocated for operations, how much did you get? Right? So once you start asking these questions, you have a much more strong idea of what this person actually did. Right? So let's say, for example, they talk a big game about they're working on this. Let's say they're working at Gojek and they talk about some partnership with Coca-Cola. Okay, so you can ask, okay, that sounds impressive, but I know you know that that would sound impressive. What was the budget allocated to that project relative to other partnerships? Maybe you find out that it was like only 1%, right? Or they don't know, or whatever. So then you realize, oh, maybe that partnership with Coca-Cola wasn't very important to Gojek, and it was just a side thing, or it didn't go very far. All right. So I think what you need to do is you need to see the ways that things can actually not make sense. Right. You need to see the ways that things are just surface level. Give you another example. When you go on a lot of websites that sell apps, they'll say that they partner with these companies, right? All these big brands. They try to build social proof. The truth is, a lot of big brands have hundreds of small teams, like Airbnb. Okay, so Airbnb will have, it looks like a big company from the outside, but inside it's probably 1,000 teams of 5 people, right? Maybe one of these people happens to use your app. So then you can say, as the app supplier, as the app vendor, you can say, yeah, I'm used at Airbnb, right? by one person on one team that's working on maybe a very inconsequential project that doesn't have a lot of impact. So you kind of like need to I guess now, okay, you kind of need to think more deeply about how to understand a person. Once you get to, let's say, the heart of the matter, Vera, you can just ask things like, imagine you're interviewing somebody inside the company. You want to understand what they're doing here at Bukit Vista, right? They're from a different chapter. What would you ask them? Okay, what are your SLAs, right? What do people expect you to do? Um, and then from that, you can already estimate, like, okay, how challenging is it? So does it sound like, let's say their SLA is that they need to process 10,000 inquiries and 80% conversion rate within 24 hours. You go, what the fuck? That sounds so crazy. How would you do that, right? That itself is an insane goal. So you know just by that this person is objectively much more impressive than somebody who's doing, let's say, I don't know, something that's half of that, right? Half the volume and double the time. So you can just have a very quick way of knowing, okay, what's the goal? Um, Once you know the goal, then you can also understand a little bit more. Okay, what about the resources? Tell me what the strategy is, right? And you can see, does this person have a strategical understanding of how to get there? Maybe they just work there. Maybe they're just another person who executes. But maybe they're the person who invented the system. So I think the second question to ask is, okay, that sounds like a pretty impressive SLA. What is your strategy to do that? How do you optimize your resource? How do you prioritize? So you'll be able to understand more, right? We prioritize. Explain to me as if it was a little child. What was the biggest challenge in that particular thing? What were you trying to do less of? What were you trying to do more of? See if they actually have a plausible answer. If they can't prioritize, they're probably not at leadership level, right? Or they're not at strategic level. So then you can go, okay, all right. Seems like what you're telling me is I'm not getting the answers I really like. Well, tell me about a problem that you solved, right? So you keep on going down the stack. You go next to the problem solving. And then you can see from the quality of problems that they're solving what the capacity of the person is. Are they solving a problem that is a daily problem, right? I helped the guest, you know, um, I helped the guest solve an overbooking case, right? It's very different than I fix a system so that we never had overbookings by thinking and preempting the coordination between the calendar and using the product team to automate this process and make sure that we had 100% reliability in our calendar database, right? So you can see that is a very different problem than the other problem, right? You can start kind of comparing things. And if it's about execution, then it's mostly about diligence, about being able to be available. And I would ask follow-up questions about, like, okay, so um, tell me about a time when a guest hasn't been able to reach you, right? And what was your reaction to that? And did you do anything to avoid that conflict from happening again? So this is just simply about, like, how well do they execute? How well are they committed to seeing something done? Um, like, oh, here's another one. Here's another really good question about execution. You can say, how many ideas did you have, let's say, at work to make things better, right? Or to improve your workspace, to improve life? And keep on asking, right? This is the good part. Keep on asking, right? Say, okay, is that it? Is that it? Is that it? And let them keep on talking, right? What you want to do is you want to compare that with then the next question, which is, how many of these actually got done, right? And then you can compare what their execution rate is, right? What is the amount of ideas versus the amount of execution? It might not be a bad thing. Some people have a lot of ideas. They remove the bad ideas through a prioritization layer, and then they execute. But it might be just things like, I should go on a diet. I've been talking to myself about going on a diet for a while. Okay, how's the diet going? I haven't started. Okay. So that one wouldn't show too much, right? Because you only get a 1 and 1. But if you accumulated, like, say, 20 things, right? Like, what do you think you should do? I should go on a diet. What else? I should read more. What else? I should talk to my friends and call my mom more. Okay, great. What else do you want to do? I should tell the boss he's an asshole so that he'll change his behavior, right? Some whatever, right? Just get him talking about what, and then you can say, how much of that have you done? and then you can see what their execution rate is. So those are generally the ways that I, let's say, go through leadership questions, right? Determine, what if this person's a leader. Um, Follow-up questions are, let's say, about capacity, um, or motivation. It's good questions about motivation, right? Like I think we already asked it before. We're all given opportunities in life. Some of these opportunities we pursue, some of these opportunities we leave behind. What are the ones you pursue? What are the ones you leave behind? That is an excellent motivation question. That tells you like essentially what this person chooses to invest in, right? What they choose to spend time in. You can flip that question and say, we all prefer to avoid risks that are unnecessary and don't really add anything to our life, right? But within risk, there is also opportunity and there could be reward. Tell me about some of the risks that you pursue and some of the risks that you do not pursue, right? That's another way of framing the same question, but kind of from a negative point. How would you follow up on a potential question like that? Let's say the person responded, I don't know. Like I would just keep on going until I was satisfied that I understood something, that I can model the person, right? Like I know enough about this person now that if they exhibited a situation that's similar here in Bukit Vista, I could predict how they're going to react. That's when I stopped doing the follow up question. Um, but Vera, you know what? I can talk all day long, but the best way I think for you to actually understand this is just come to the next interview where I do the interview, right? And see kind of like how I do the follow up questions. This will be for sales and BD candidates.
Sounds
I think
like
once you see it, I think it'll become much more. Uh, it's like freestyle rap in a way. It's very circumstantial, and that's why I'm actually good at rap now. I realize I can rap pretty well. I can write like a rap within 5 minutes of actually experiencing the situation. I'm not so good where I can actually come up with it on the fly. That's a different level of skill. But but yeah, part of it is you intuit the situation, you see what you understand, and then you try to engage with it. To I know that's a very abstract answer. That probably doesn't answer some questions, but this is not an easy skill. I'll put it that way. This isn't something that like, yeah, here, look, like this is how you turn on the speaker, you press this button and it reacts, right? This kind of thing, if you don't know what you're trying to do and you just ask mechanical questions, it won't work, right? It's not like you can, you kind of need to like be a journalist, right? You're asking questions that really get the meat out of the situation, that get the heart of the truth out. That's probably one analogy that is a little bit more digestible. Or a really good moderator, or a really good lawyer, right? It might be like any of these professions that require really good cross examination skills, right? Really to get kind of like the underlying nature. How do you get good at it? I don't know. I barely understand how it works myself. When I do it, it's I know I'm doing it right because I can help the room see more clearly who this person is, but I don't know how to teach it yet. I don't know what the kind of like the syllabus would be. But let's say this. Why don't you watch me do it at the next thing? Observe, see what you pick up, and try to apply that to your own way. Yeah, and I think be curious and never be satisfied with an answer until you really get to the heart of it. Okay, all right, we just got to go. All right, Vera, have a good
okay.
one, and I'll see you at the next one then. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.